Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we'll cover the 7 worst handguns you should never use for self-defense or carry. The goal is to warn you about unreliable weapons and suggest better alternatives. These guns have been tested and found unsafe for real-life situations. So this video will help you avoid wasting money and ensure you're not at risk with ineffective firearms. Let's get started with number 7, the Braverman Pen Gun. While it has some cool spy appeal, it's a poor choice for self-defense. Chambered in small calibers, like 22 Magnum, 25 ACP, 32 ACP, and 380 ACP, it's just not reliable enough for protection. Despite its novelty, it's a serious risk in a real-world scenario. Personally, the first wouldn't trust my safety to it. It's more of a conversation piece than a practical defensive tool. Plus, it's expensive, usually around $1,000 as a collector's item. As for practicality, it's among the least usable firearms we've seen. To load it, you dismantle it, loading a single round by breaking open the breech and removing a cap. The safety catch and trigger mechanism are poorly designed, and the trigger's operation is confusing. It might not be the absolute worst trigger that honor still goes to the cop derringer, but it's certainly a challenge. After some fiddling, I managed to develop a clumsy technique using 3 fingers and my thumb, but even then, hitting a target is difficult. I recall testing it with Cal from Optics Planet at a 15-yard range, and getting even one hit was a surprisingly good result. Its design makes it unwieldy, increasing the chances of dropping it in a stressful situation. And at extremely close quarters, you'd probably lose grip before you could even aim it. The small calibers require a precision shot to a vital area, which is unlikely in a real confrontation. At point-blank range, you'd be better off with a knife. While it does have some James Bond flair, it's not suitable for concealed carry. Next up at number 6, we have the Taurus PT-22, which malfunctioned right out of the box. It seems to be self-disassembling, unfortunately not in a good way. It's a budget version of the Beretta Tomcat, but it's poorly made. The tip-up barrel system might seem convenient, but in practice, it's awkward and prone to failure. The build feels flimsy, and quality control is lacking. When it works, it only holds 8 rounds of 22 Magnum, which, even if reliable, isn't a great option for concealed carry. At around $200, it's affordable, but with a heavy trigger pull, poor sights, and constant reliability issues, it's a bad choice. If you're looking for a similar option, go for the Ruger LCP. It's more reliable, chambered in 3 ACP, and just a far better firearm. At number 5, we have the Bond Arms Honeybee. Even at 5 yards, I'm struggling to hit a target. It's chambered in 22 long rifle, which seems laughable considering its size is similar to a Glock 26. Yet it only holds 2 shots. The break-action design points right back at your face while reloading, and the single-action operation complicates things further. There's no rear sight, just a rudimentary front sight, making it hard to hit anything at any distance. The Honeybee is an old-fashioned Derringer design, and while it might look cool, it's really outdated. 2 shots of 22 long rifle, a weak caliber, with difficult reloading and poor accuracy, what's to like? Plus, rimfire cartridges are inherently less reliable than centerfire ones. If you're considering a Derringer in a bigger caliber, like 9mm or 45 ACP, get ready for brutal recoil, especially with its break-action design. If you're attracted to it because of its appearance in the quick and the dead, buy it as a display piece. But for carry, it's useless and a waste of your money. Moving to number 4, we have the Girsan 2311, which promised much but ultimately failed to deliver. It's a double stack, 9mm, 1911, style pistol priced around $700. Initially, I was excited about the idea of a budget-friendly 2011, but the reality is that it performs like a subpar $700 1911 poorly. After extensive testing, we experienced a range of malfunctions, including feeding and extraction failures. Accuracy was disappointing, and the included red dot optic malfunctioned and detached due to loose screws. Recoil was unusually high for a 9mm, indicating poor spring tuning. The trigger is a big letdown with an 8-pound single-action pull, which negates the advantage of owning a 1911, a light, crisp trigger. The magazines frequently ejected unexpectedly, and the ejection pattern was erratic, often hitting me in the face. The overall quality control was dismal, especially considering this gun was sent to me directly from Girsan for review. Imagine how the consumer model fares. The problem with the Girsan 2311 is the vast gap between its potential and its execution. While you can find better quality, double-stack 1911s in the $800 to $1,000 range, like those from Live Free Armory, the Girsan 2311 is sure to disappoint. If you're looking for a reliable firearm, you'd be better off with a different brand. At number 3, we have the Thunderstruck VolleyFire, a double-barrel revolver that's as ridiculous as it sounds. The name suggests a powerful weapon, but the reality is far from it. This double-barrel system with independent triggers is conceptually interesting but terribly executed. The build quality is poor. The cylinder ejection is hit or miss, and the sights are practically useless, serving more as decorative elements than functional aiming aids. The real problem is the trigger. It's the worst I've ever encountered. It's a Glock-style trigger dingus, which is laughable given the design. The trigger pull feels like it requires an ungodly amount of force, and there's no discernible difference in function whether the safety is engaged or not. The gun forces you into an awkward grip, and when you finally manage to fire, both barrels discharge at once, doubling the recoil. It's almost impossible to maintain control, and the gun literally bounced out of my hands during testing. While it does offer 8 rounds of .22 Magnum, the design is flawed. You only have 4 pairs of shots before reloading, and the trigger, reliability, and shootability are so poor that you're better off with something else, like the Walther WMP, which is far more reliable, accurate, and comfortable to shoot. The Thunderstruck VolleyFire might look interesting, but it's not a functional or reliable firearm in any way. Approaching the top spot at number 2, we have the paper gangster gun, the Intratec TEC-22. This firearm is a bizarre and unreliable choice, more often seen malfunctioning than actually being used for practical purposes. It's essentially a .22 caliber imitation of the TEC-9, and though it has a certain visual appeal with its banana magazines, it's incredibly unreliable. This gun is prone to constant malfunctions. Virtually no feed ramp means that it's a single-shot weapon at best. I bought it because it was dirt cheap, under $200, but it's functionally useless. Even after cleaning and lubrication, it still won't cycle reliably with any .22 ammo. The TEC-22 also has a strange side-mounted safety, which is awkward to engage, and a charging mechanism that's just as bizarre. It comes with 30 and 35 round magazines, which sounds good until you realize that you're lucky to get a single shot off before it jams. While its size and impracticality make it even worse, anything else you could buy for the same price, like the High Point K9, is far more reliable and functional. In all honesty, you should just avoid this gun entirely. And now, coming in at number 1, we have my absolute least favorite handgun of all time, the Altor pistol. This weapon is a horrifying mix of 18th century firearm technology and a 1980s car lighter. If the goal was to create the worst possible handgun, they succeeded. It's a breech-action, slingshot trigger weapon that's a nightmare to operate. Loading it is a slow and tedious process, and firing it requires an awkward and precarious grip that often leads to it flying out of your hand due to the lack of recoil mitigation. Weighing under 8 ounces and constructed entirely of plastic, this single-shot 9mm gun has almost no grip surface and no proper sights, just decorative plastic protrusions. The trigger mechanism is absurd, and the safety doesn't even work on mine. The recoil is so comical that I felt less recoil from a Desert Eagle. The overall build quality is abysmal, and firing it is a terrifying experience. There's always the genuine risk of a catastrophic failure. It's difficult to recommend anything worse than this. It's essentially a disaster of a firearm that no one should consider for any purpose. If you've ever fired or owned one of these guns, or if you know of any firearms worse than the Altor, let me know in the comments. Please avoid this pistol at all costs. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.